Hi, my name's Sim and I'm the bike buyer for Wiggle, and I'm here today to talk to you about an exciting new overseas partnership with a brand called Boardman. We're lucky enough to have with us in the studio today a gold medal winner, a multiple world champion, multiple Tour de France stage winner, and still the world record holder for the fastest stage at the Tour de France, Chris Boardman himself. Hi Chris.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you very much.
Excellent. I want to ask you a few questions today about Boardman bikes, about the new partnership with Wiggle, and if you don't mind, can we start with where you started off?
I started at the age of 13, just right back in the day. It was a tiny little race outside a small town of Chester, cut off jeans, football shorts, people turned up, and then I rode my first race. It was a 10-mile time trial, race against the clock, and from that moment really I was hooked, going back the next week and the next week and just getting slightly better until eventually I ended up in the British team. And we weren't winning anything at the time, so just even being in the British team was not a great thing, but clawed forwards until eventually 1992 Olympic gold medal. So that's the potted early history.
Fantastic story. And time trialling was your passion right from the very beginning. How did that start out?
I think I used to enjoy about time trialling is that you got out what you put in, and it was immeasurable and it was quantifiable, and you were in control of your own destiny. So I was fascinated by going to a race, having a performance, and then going, right, what did we want to happen? What actually happened? What caused the gap? How do we close that gap? And it was, it sounds a bit cheesy, but it wasn't really about trying to win. It was trying to be better all the time, just trying to be better. And it was a fascinating process, and then that led on to bigger things. And actually, if we took doing that and we applied it to the individual pursuit on the track, then we can get more out of it, or maybe we can start and ride as a professional and win some of the time trials there. So it all just branched out from that time trialing background.
Fascinating. A lot of people will remember that 1992 victory because of the bike you rode, and that was quite a feat of engineering.
It was, and it came from, and it's something I came to use later on, it came from bringing people into the process who weren't cyclists, who were completely ignorant of cycling, but were experts in what they did. And they looked at this problem, they said, right, get this person on two wheels, across this distance as quickly as possible. How do you do it? Well, a bike, air is 80% of your energy is just used overcoming air resistance, so we need to make something aerodynamic. Well, a wing's more aerodynamic than a collection of tubes, so we'll go that way. And why are you holding a wheel on two sides when it only needs to be held on one side? And it was just a wholly different set of thinking, and it revolutionised the sport, and it took it by surprise. And it was an iconic shape, I think, which most people still remember today.
Absolutely. And carbon fibre as well, which was at the time completely novel, but now is pretty much seen in most of the road bikes we see on the road today.
There was tiny experiments done at that time with carbon fibre, and it was basically people taking this material and ramming it into tube shapes because that's what bikes look like. And then that moment sort of opened people's minds to, carbon fibre is best used in quite large surface areas, and you can make it do all sorts of different things and still get the weight down, and you can still have the aerodynamics. So it was a total have your cake and eat it material, fantastic stuff. And since then we've been exploring what you can do with it and how you can shape it, and it's been probably the biggest single change in the sport of cycling in the last 20 years.
Amazing. And so you went on to some pretty outstanding performances during the 90s. Tell us a little bit about what your 1994 performance story was like.
You're going back a long way now. 94 was the first time I became a professional cyclist right at the end of 93. And 94 I wanted to ride the Tour de France. And I just signed this contract, and Roger Leger, my boss, then said, well, calm down. First year professionals don't really ride the Tour de France. But it's what we wanted to do, and we aimed for that. And things went really well going up to that race, when some stages, 3 stages of the Dauphiné Libéré, which is the second biggest race in France. And I ended up in the Tour de France squad. And the moment we knew we were in the Tour de France, we almost forget the 3 weeks. My race is going to be the 7 minutes right at the start of that race. We're going to focus all that knowledge we've gained from pursuit and time trialing on trying to win the Tour de France prologue. And we focused on that one event. And I ended up winning the prologue by 15 seconds from Miguel Indurain, and I think it's the fastest ever prologue time set today, 55 point something kilometres an hour.
That's a record that still stands today.
Still stands.
Pretty amazing.
It was quite an experience. I can't say as I fully appreciated it at the time because it just all happened so fast. So I had to have some disappointment as well before it really sunk in what that meant.
Yeah. And do you think that record will ever be broken? Because that's a pretty iconic number, right?
I think all records are there to be broken. I think that's the point of having a record, is having a bar so everybody knows where the bar is, and so they try and get past it. I think there's no record that's ever going to be safe. It doesn't matter what it is. And it may be years and years before these things happen, but it will happen.
Fantastic. After your riding days then, you then became involved in a few interesting projects. Can you tell me a bit about those?
Well, when I finished, I started to, I wrote for a diving magazine and did some obscure stuff for a couple of years, just gap years as it were. But I got a phone call from Peter Keane, the then boss of British Cycling. He just set up this new performance programme, and they were having some issues with a young bloke called Bradley Wiggins. And he was facing some challenges and some tough decisions, and asked him I'd come in to help. So I came in, and Bradley and I spent a little bit of time together, but the top and bottom of it was I got sucked back into the world of cycling, and in particular the British team. And I did numerous roles for them, but I think the most interesting that happened over the last 8 years where I've been Director of Research and Development, and that's been absolutely fascinating. Okay. So all of those things about the people who came to the Lotus bike, and the reason it was so radically different and better was because they used experts from other places who didn't know anything about cycling. All of those things came back, and we formed a very small team of 6 people who would look at everything that wasn't coaching and the physical performance and say, right, how can we make all of those things a little bit better? And it's been a fascinating journey, and I've learned an awful lot, from material sciences to aerodynamics and all different aspects, even down to clothing and materials.
And by all accounts, it's been a pretty successful venture, wouldn't you say? It
has, and the vast majority of it I can't talk about, or I'd have to kill it. And it's very much the property of the British team, and we made some big impacts on the performances of the riders, shall we say. What we could take forward, and what I can bring into to our business, is I know where to look, I know where the performances can be improved, I know what tools to use to look, and I know what people I'd want to work with. So that expertise is open for me to use in our own business, and we've already started to do that.
Okay. So since you moved on from working with British Cycling, we've got the Boardman bike brand, which we can see a beautiful example of the Air 9.4 behind us. Tell us a little bit how Boardman bikes got started out.
Well, back in 2005 now, or to precede that, I'd asked a number of times over the last 15 years or so to effectively badge a bike, and there was other things to do, and it just didn't really appeal, and I didn't take any of those offers. But in 2005, a guy called Alan Ingerfield, who was a top triathlete, Ironman triathlete, approached me, very, very enthusiastic, and he said, I'm sure we can do this better, and he started to talk about making bikes, and he started to talk about the performance, and that was, as I said right at the start, how can I actually be better? Rather than try to win, how can I be better? How can we make this the best that it can be? And that continual improvement, and this is the way that Alan was talking. And so we very quickly formed a relationship, and we wanted to start a bike company, and we didn't know how we were going to do it, but Alan found a pathway to make it work, and since then we've been making the best bikes that we can for each different application. It doesn't really matter to me now whether it's a hybrid or a mountain bike or a road bike. It's about being the best that can be in that area, and we've applied all that knowledge and gained from working with the British team, that methodology to the bikes now, and these are the kind of things that we're coming up with.
Fantastic. And up till now, Boardman bikes have only been available to customers inside of the UK with existing distribution there. But now I understand they're coming through ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, the Wiggle was the perfect partnership for us, because we've had a challenge the last few years just keeping up with demand, which is a fantastic problem to have, just making bikes fast enough. And that's been great, but we very quickly thought, right, this has got to go outside of the UK. But how do we do that in a way that's going to work for the customer? Because one of the things that we've set up for is we give a fantastic price. We want to be able to say, right, you're a customer, you take this away from the place that you bought it, and we guarantee you won't look somewhere else and think, oh, we should have got that. And that is really what we're shooting for, that level of trust in the brand. So how do we do that? How do we keep that price competitive without losing any quality? And Wiggle was perfect for us. It allows us to reach all over the world very quickly, and people are becoming really comfortable with buying that way now. And it was a logical partnership.
Fantastic. So, Chris, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about standards. It's quite hard to pin down standards in the bike industry, but there's been a few that have kind of come up in the last few years. What's your take on these?
I think a lot of it, and we're really careful to sift out because we don't want to do it for fashion. Part of the ethos is about performance, and that's it. It's about performance and trust. So we'll make a change if there's a performance benefit to that, be it lighter, stronger, stiffer, faster, whatever it might be. A couple of the more notable ones is we've got an increase in the headset bearing size. So we've got 1 1/8 and even 1 1/2 in some bikes. And that's definitely got some merit because it allows the fibres, carbon fibre, which we use a lot on our bikes, to actually run a much straighter path. So you can have less material and stiffer. So that kind of makes sense, and we've very much adopted that. Similarly, the BB30, to increase the bearing size in that area is definitely the way to go. And it allows you to have a much smoother and sleeker bottom bracket area as well.
The UCI has got a big part to play in what happens with bike design. What's your take on their input so far?
Well, the Union Cycliste Internationale, UCI, is the world governing body for cycle sport. Not all cycle sport or all things involving a bike. Triathlon, for example, doesn't have to adhere to those rules. But nevertheless, all the manufacturers want to try and cover as many bases as they can. The vast majority of racing bikes are going to be under UCI rules, so that's what they spec to. They've now decided that rather than have the rules and you just go and make your bikes, if you have to ride in a UCI competition, you have to have a stamp that says this bike, the design's already been checked and approved. So you submit in advance and there's a process to go through. It's very new, few teething problems. But the whole industry seemed to have gone for it, so we're all going to do it, and we'll do it as well. I like rules, and I've always liked rules from the days of the Lotus bike through working with the British cycling team, because there's something that you're right, okay, you give me a rule and I'm going to find a way to absolutely butt up against it and frankly be as clever as we can to get the best performance within those rules. And it's part of the game. So we're going to adhere to those rules, no problem, and we'll do everything we can performance-wise within them. And I think the only thing that we ask of the Union Cycliste Internationale is that whatever the rules are, you enforce them equally across all brands, so we have absolute parity, level playing field. You have lines rather than grey areas, so it's really clear. So they've got a lovely rule that says no tube, or any tube, has to be 3-to-1 ratio. If it's going to be this deep or this deep, it can only be 3 times that in length. So nice and clear rules like that, we love them.
Yeah. So the current Boardman range of bikes, Chris, that's currently being raced across the world by a number of different professional athletes, is that right?
Yes, it is, and we've been really, really lucky. First of all, we got involved very, very early with the Brownlee brothers, Alistair Brown and Johnny Brownlee, and they've just gone from strength to strength, winning even this last weekend one of the World Cup triathlons, which is fantastic, approaching the Olympic Games. We're really excited about that. And we also sponsor the United Healthcare cycling team based in America, but also racing in Europe now. They were perfect for us because all of those athletes together, we need their input to make the best product. And a lot of people say that. And I remember as an athlete, a manufacturer would come along who sponsors the team and say, tell us what you think about this wheel. And you look at it and think, right, well, you've made the moulds and you've already done it, so really you just want me to tell you it's great because it's all done. Well, we involve our athletes very early. They ride prototypes. And our early time trial bike that we're doing for this year actually went out to the team, and they got 10 small changes that we could make and got fed into the design process, because nobody is going to push it. And I can't these days. I can go and ride a bike. I know the design of the bike, but I'm not going to give it the hammering that they're going to give it in competition. So we get feedback from them that we couldn't get any other way. So not only are they out there making people aware of the bikes to make sure that they're really visible, they're also helping with the actual manufacture of them.
With all these bikes around us, I've got to ask you, which one is your favourite?
I hate that question. I get asked that question a lot, and I know it's coming, and I try and preempt it and think, right, which one is it? Because we've got over 50 different bikes here, and they're just, all of them have been great fun to work on and design. I think from a making them point of view, I absolutely love absolute high-end bikes. It relates to what I used to do for a job, and to see all this technology go into a bike that's ridden up a mountain by a professional team, or even used in the Olympic Games by the Brownlees, that is a phenomenal thing to do. But truth be told, if I had to put my finger on it, I'd say that the Pro Hybrid is probably my favourite bike. and we put a lot of passion into it to get it the best bike for being that about town, just riding on paths. And that's exactly what I use it for. I go out with the kids down the Wirral Way, a local path. We go to the pub on it, just pop to the shops, and it's just a great tool, and I love it.
Fantastic. Chris, it's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.